Here we have Jiang Zia the Fisherman. Is a 3-drop 7/7. When this card enters your field, put the top card of your deck into your graveyard. If it was put there this way, put an XX Water Darkness Fairy Resonator onto the field, where X is that card's casting cost. This is a slightly more expensive, but it comes with a body style of the fishing card we talked about that may see a really cute, really cool, maybe good play with Xi'an and putting giant things on the top of your deck and shifting them into your yard and dropping huge, huge tokens and multiplying those tokens. So this is another one that in that Xi'an build, maybe. I mean, who knows? It's kind of a wide open deck right now. You know, if you can, I could say if you can drop this down at 3, have him be a 7/7 body, and then on top of that also have a 1700 token. That seems like it would be pretty good, you know. So we'll have to see how well that whole build goes once we get a little further into the metagame. Here we have Jack climbing the beanstalk. Excuse me. This is 3 will. It's 2 green and 1 colorless for an 8/8. When this card deals damage to your opponent, you may banish this card. If you do, you may search your deck for a card named Skyscraper Giant and put that card onto the battlefield. I'm going to actually go ahead here and talk about this guy. This guy, I think, is cute. Like, the giant that he grabs is massive. He's a 17/17 with barrier of chance spells and has tap to deal 800 damage to all resonators without flying. So it's definitely a big body, you know. But this is a card that you're going to have to drop on 3, maybe 2 if you're using any ramp stuff. Then it has to attack, and it has to get through, and it has to damage your opponent, and then you can sack it. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are cards in this set that have inheritance of like 1 green and 1 colorless that let you give a creature +3/+3 and flying till the turn, so you could jump it over their heads. The only problem is now you're down 2 cards for 1 big giant. Don't get me wrong, the giant's great, but if the giant gets spot removed, now you just 2 for 1 to yourself, or 2.5 for 1 because you searched for the giant. So it's not going to be great. It's you know, like I said, it's cute, and don't get me wrong, it's because of how big the giant is and how people love giant creatures. It's hilarious. It's a giant. But this card will absolutely see play from people who just want to put giant creatures into play. And this card, you know, is not going to be great, though. Here we have Kumomaru. This is a 2 black, 7/7. When it enters the field, put 2 1/1 counters on target resonator your opponent's controls. This is in the same category as the other card that was the target player sacks a creature and puts a 1/1 counter on everything they control. Where in the deck that wants to run that, it's going to be really good. I mean, the guy comes down early. He's a 7/7. And, you know, in the deck that wants to utilize 1/1 counters on your opponent's creatures or to power out your own first daughter, this card will be good. It'll definitely see play in that deck. It'll be, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 of. How good the deck will be, who knows? But it'll be in there. All right, here we have our next inheritance. It is Luan, Auspicious Beast. It is a 3-drop, 1 green, 2 colorless, 7/7 inheritance of the same cost. You discard it, target J resonator gets +7/+7 till end of turn. The inheritance deck should like this guy. I mean, 7/7 is definitely a big enough boost to where it'll make a difference. The inheritance deck also allows you to, you know, once Fari is flipped over, to use inheritance abilities once per turn for free. You know, it's not going to be your top tier 1 inheritance cards, but it's definitely going to be good enough to be in the deck. It'll be, you know, 2, maybe 3 of, depending on how many slots you want to free up with other spells, and if you want to run, you know, counter spell packages in the deck because they're all on color, and you know what you're trying to do. But this guy, if you have room for it, it's definitely a decent enough card to see play in the deck. Now we have Lilius Petal's Assistant. This is 3-drop, 1 black, 1 green, 1 colorless for a 5/5. When this card enters your field, put target wind or darkness resonator with a total cost of 1 from your graveyard into your field. This card here, I mean, it's a good card. It really is. It's going to require, very aggro style decks, very low casting cost style decks. But if you're to a spot where you're running, Levitines and things of that nature, and you can, sack off creatures to benefit you, or even have to chump block with creatures, or anything of that nature. I know there's a creature in the set that's a 1-drop black creature that you can sack to put a copy of target token creature into play. I mean, even just pulling that thing back in decks that can produce 1,500 tokens for free seems not bad. So, in cheaper style decks where your creatures are going to be utilized not so much as attackers but as tools to be sacrificed or to be destroyed, this card can definitely pull its own weight. I don't know if I see it as too strong of a card. If it is, I have a feeling it would be more toward a blue, black, green style of like the Xi'an with the fishing, because you can run your ramp creatures and the guy that sacrifices to produce more tokens. But yeah, other than that, it's not a bad card. We have Mooj Dart's Illusionary Soldiers here. It's a 1/1 for 1. Prevent all damage that will be dealt to this card during your turn, or pay 1 blue. Return this card to its owner's hand. This guy is just hilarious. I love this guy. I don't know why. He's just like the greatest blocker on the face of the planet. I don't see him seeing a ton of play ever. You don't really care too much in the current metagame about this stuff. Like he can step in front of a Rizza or a Melder. He's not going to be able to get in front of any sort of flyers, but I mean, he can step in front of Hook. The problem is the decks that are going to run Rizza, the decks that are going to run Melder, the decks that are going to run Hook, they're all going to have answers to this guy that don't even need to deal damage. So yeah, you can return him to your hand, and then you got to cast him again, but he's just not going to be super good, and I don't see him seeing a lot of play outside of casual decks that are trying to find other ways to abuse him. Here we have another card that I believe to be astronomically good. This card is Magic Rebound. It is tier 1 all the way. It is black, blue. It is a quick cast. Change the target of target spell or an ability with a single target and draw a card. So this card does not hit the Nameless Mist, but it does hit the Scorn of Dark Alice. This card hits every piece of removal except for Black Moonbeam. This card protects your guys, and it replaces itself in your hand. There's no reason to not have this card in your sideboard if you are trying to end the game with dealing damage from creatures or resonators or J resonators, because this card is just going to save your guys. Even against stealth, this card is phenomenal. They're going to go Rizza on their turn, or the end of your turn. Then they're going to drop Melder, and you can redirect their Melder's ability back to their own Melder and have Melder kill himself and draw a card. Like, it just seems really good. And if you're in these colors and you're trying to win with Resonator damage, I would absolutely recommend playing these at least in the side, for control style matchups. Here we have Milliam's Weapon is 1 white, quick cast chant. Put 2 1/1 counters on target J Resonator. This card is not really going to see play. It's too low impact, I think. It's, 2 1/1 counters is just not really going to do a ton most of the time. It doesn't even have Remnant. Like Dreams of Flight is just, in my opinion, strictly better than this from the last set. I know it doesn't put it permanently, but it jumps your creature for a turn and has the ability to go over 2 for that turn. So I'm just not a big fan of this card ever. Now we have Messenger of Lilia's Petal. This is a 2-drop, black and green, 6/6 beast. When it enters your field, search your Magic Stone deck for a special stone, reveal it. Then you shuffle the rest of your Magic Stone deck and put it on top. Not a big fan. There's so much fixing in this game right now, between the dual stones, between the pop rocks or shock rocks, whatever you want to call them, between things like rulers, memoriams, and just everything that's available. I don't think it's necessary to dedicate an entire card or multiple cards in your deck to just setting your stone deck right. I mean, I would much rather just play, red and be able to get Red Riding Hood and be able to get that card into play. I'd rather play Blessing of Yggdrasil and get that card into play, or Magic Stone Analysis and get that card into play, than this guy who's just going to stack your deck for you. We have Mool, the Town That Never Was. This is 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 colorless. It is an addition. It says 1 blue, 1 black, remove a resonator in your graveyard from the game, put a 4/4 Water Darkness Fantasy token into your field. We spoke earlier about the avoiding stealth package and playing with the blue-black creatures that produce the tokens. And if you are going to go into that, this should be a 2 of in your deck, if not more. This is a card that just gives you absurd value. It turns all of your creatures that are already creatures that are producing 2 creatures into creatures that are going to produce you 3 creatures. And like I said, when you drop Moojart into play, the new Moojart, all of these tokens become 8/8 tokens. They're very, very good. And this card is, it can just sit there until you need to use it. It can be used at instant speed. The card is very good in that deck. And if you're going to run that style deck, I strongly, strongly recommend running probably a 2 of in here. They're not cards that you really want to have more of in hand than 1, because, it's just going to be a dead card at that point in time. Now we have Meeting of Light and Fire is red, white, and colorless. It is a quick cast chant. Choose one. If you control a light and another fire resonator, you may choose both. Reveal the top card of your deck. You gain 100 life multiplied by the cost of that card revealed this way, and then put that card in your hand. Or reveal the top card of your deck. This card deals 100 damage multiplied by the total cost of that card revealed to your opponent, and then put that card in your hand. Do remember with this card that if you have both and you are casting both, you will draw 2 cards. Each one of those abilities triggers separately, and each one requires a draw. So you're not revealing 1 card and gaining life and dealing damage equal to that. So at first you will gain the life on the top card. The next card down you will deal the damage. This card, I don't hate it. Like in the Blink deck, in the Lumia deck that's going to run the Blink creatures, you're going to hit both most of the time. And at that case, I mean, just a card that was in those colors, in red and white for 3, that was a quick cast that said draw 2 cards, would be good, because that style of deck is going to run out of hand really, really fast. So, and the fact that you're going to gain some amount of life and deal some amount of damage is great. So, if you're in that red-white deck where the enter the battlefields and the quick aggro creatures and the burn spells and things like that, where you're going to have enough of those creatures, I would definitely recommend running some number of these. They would very, very much, benefit you. Worst case scenario, it replaces itself. Here we've got the Planting Bean for Jack. This is 1 green. It's a chance. Search your deck for a card and put it into your graveyard. Then shuffle your deck. If this card was awakened, you can put that card from your graveyard to your hand. It has an awakening cost of 2. So this card is perfectly fine to play, especially if you are in a control shell deck that's running cards, that are planning on going late game and is in this color. Unless you're running up against a bunch of barriers that remove all cards and graveyards from the game, this card is just a tutor. And like I said before, tutors are great, and this one it's actually fairly reasonably priced at 3. It'd be cool if it had quick cast, but most tutors don't. So yeah, I would definitely say this card, maybe even a 1 of in main deck if you're in a control shell that's playing green. If not, definitely sideboard for when you have to go head up against other control decks, because it'll allow you to search for that one answer that you need at that one point in time. So never going to be a bad card. I'd say if you start seeing seals, get it out of there. Here we have Priest of Divine Protection. This guy here, or girl here, I love. She is red, white, colorless. It's a 7/7 quick cast. When this card enters your field, if it was played from your hand, remove another target resonator you control from the game, then put it back into its owner's field rested. If you remember earlier, we had the 3-drop creature that when it came into play, it blew up a rested resonator that your opponent controls. Here's where the shenanigans come in. Your opponent attacked on their turn. You dropped the other creature that blew up their rested resonator. On their next turn, they go to attack you again, and you quick cast this lady into play. She flickers the other guy that re-triggers that ability and makes them sack another tapped resonator, or destroy a tapped resonator. So the deck that's going to run the enter the battlefield triggers and things of that nature, this is going to be an absolute 4 of. It's just going to be broken. It's going to allow you to do so many goofy shenanigans, so many different things. If you think of all the different enter the battlefield it triggers, and this one just is going to trigger whichever one of them you want from any creature you have in play. Also, it's just great for protecting your guy. You know, if you have a guy in play and they want to kill it, they go to Endless Night it, you just flicker it with this. When you flicker it, it comes back into play as a brand new creature. It is not the creature that was targeted, so that spell will not work. So it's very, very, very versatile, and there's so many things you can utilize its powers for, so I would definitely recommend a 4 of in the decks that are going to run this style of play. Now we have Plot of Water and Darkness. This is a Darkness and Water and 1 colorless chant quick cast. Choose one, or if you control a Water and a Darkness Resonator, you may choose both. Destroy target Resonator, or put a 4/4 Water Darkness Fantasy token onto your field. This guy here, in that Water Darkness deck we were talking about, the one where we're avoiding stealth, this guy here is phenomenal. It's incredible. It's great. It'll either spit you a 8/8 if you have a Mood Shard in play, or a 4/4, or it'll kill a guy, or it'll do both. In other control style decks, I don't think I'm a huge fan. I like Endless Night more than I like this, simply due to the fact that for the exact same cost and for less will color restrictions, it not only kills a guy at the same cost, both at quick cast speed, but it also gives everything else -2, -200. So that's going to wipe out elf tokens and things of that nature. So in those kind of decks, I definitely like Endless Night more. If you're going to play in the blue and black token deck, this card is awesome. It should be 3 of in the main, maybe 4 of in the main, and whatever you're not using in the main out of the play set should go to the side, and you should have it available for you. This card art is awesome. This is Pyrokaryotic Being. It is 1 blue, 1 red for a 0/0. This card gets 200/200 for each chant in your graveyard. For 1 red, this gets Swiftness, and for 1 blue, this gets Flying. Both are until end of turn effects. So this guy here, surprisingly, like as a 0/0 that has just kind of weird art, has the potential just to be great, to be honest. Like, you're going to play, things like Lightning Strikes and things like Bombardments, and you're going to play a bunch of like draw spells in blue that are all going to be chants. It won't take long. It won't take more than 3 or 4 turns for you to have 6 or 7 spells in your yard. And when you do this thing, if you have 7, this guy's a 14/14. That when he comes into play, you can give him Flying and Swiftness till end of turn. So the guy is actually very, very, very good. And I would say in the Soul deck that's going to be running a lot of chants mainly, this guy is not a bad option for the creatures you're looking to put into the deck. He's going to always have a way bigger body than his will cost should allow for. And the fact that you can just late game draw him, drop him down, and get those last few points in through the air is just very relevant. This guy's a very good card. Here we have Rune of Soul. This is also 1 blue, 1 red. This is a quick cast ancient magic spell. It says search your library for an ancient magic spell. If you do, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your deck. In the Soul deck, this card is going to be at least a 2, 3, and or 4 of. There are so many good ancient magic cards in this set, plus the ones from the last set, the 2 big ones, where you can cast this to search for pretty much any answer you need to any board situation. This card is just so versatile. It replaces itself. It's a quick cast, so you can do it before untap. There's really no reason not to have this card in your deck, especially considering the fact that you can actually just use Ancient Magic to cast it if you have more, or you can use mana counters if you have more than you need. It's very, very, very good in that deck, so definitely playable. Here we have one of my personal favorites for commons and uncommons. It's Rachel Smile. This is a quick cast 5-drop. It is blue, blue, and 3 colorless. You rest all J Resonators and all magic stones your opponents control. The reason I like this card so much is there are more than enough decks out there that are going to try to build up for one big one-turn win, whether you're using the Arla Ruler with the turning your stone into a creature, or whether you're planning on end of turning Rizza and Melder into play and attacking, or if you've just got other stuff you want to do, if you're playing in the soul deck and you really want to get off that bounce all creatures and drop 3 hooks into play spell, you really want to make sure that the coast is clear for that, and you're not going to run into counter spells and things like that. So this is a super good card just to cast off right on their turn. Yeah, they will be able to tap their stones. They will be able to use their will to cast whatever they want to on their turn, but they will be tapped out on your turn. And if you do it before their attacks, their creatures will not attack you. So it's going to leave you, just open and carte blanche to do whatever you feel like. They're not going to be able to counter your stuff. So, I would say play this card in at least the side, if not a couple in the main. Keep in mind this is also an ancient magic spell, so you can go ahead and use your mana counters to cast this guy. So it's a very good card, and against the control matchups, the counter spell decks, this card is going to be a big deal for you most games that you cast it. All right, here we have our next inheritance creature. It is a Sacred Komianu. It is a 5-drop, 1,000. Whenever you do a judgment, return this card to your owner's hand, which means, it's going to be probably from your graveyard, or I suppose from play would work too, So it has an inheritance cost equal to its casting cost of 5. Target J Resonator you control gets plus 1,000. So this guy here will absolutely be in the inheritance deck, simply due to the fact that when Fari is flipped over into a J Ruler form, you get to have 1 free inheritance every turn, and giving a creature plus 1,000 just seems good. You're probably not going to run a set of these. Probably not going to run more than 2 of these, just because you only get to do the free inheritance once per turn, and 5 is a lot of will for this style of deck. 5 is a lot for a pump spell, and that's essentially what you're turning this guy into. I know he's kind of a recurring pump spell, but he costs a lot. So I'd say a 2 of in the inheritance deck should be fine. You may have a different opinion, and that's okay. You're more than welcome to voice that in the bottom and let me know what you think about this guy. Here we have Shadow of Lapis. This guy is going to go smack dab into that fishing deck where it's spitting huge tokens everywhere. And, realistically, it could actually go into the blue-black token deck. It's probably not as good in there. But in the fishing deck, this is great. This is 1 black for a 200/400. You can banish this card to put a token copy of target Resonator token you control onto the field. So if you consider the fact that fishing is going to remove a 1,500 from the top of your library and drop a 1,500 token, then you can play this guy for 1 black and sack him. He's just another 1 casting cost, giant, huge creature token into play. So in that Xi'an fishing deck that we are going to try to build here, and maybe I'll try to get you a deck tech for it. It might be fun. We will definitely run 4 of these guys in that deck. Here we have Sympathy of Fire and Water. It is an ancient magic spell. It is 1 blue and 1 red. Choose one, or if you control a fire and another water resonator, you may choose both. You can produce 1 red, 1 blue, and 1 colorless. Spend this will only play ancient magic spells or chants, or target chant in your graveyard gains remnant until end of turn. Not a huge fan of this. It's basically going to net you 1 mana, or 1 will, or you're going to get to flashback remnant 1 of your cards from the graveyard. But for the cost, it's just not super good. I don't see this card really seeing a ton of play ever. The art is really cool, though, but that's about all that I can say that's good about the card. Here we have Sacred Beast of the Wind. This is another inheritance creature that is going to be an absolute 4 of in the inheritance deck. This guy is 1 green. It's a 3/3 flyer. For its inheritance cost of 1 green, target Resonator gains +3/+3 in flying. Keep in mind that with all the inheritance creatures, they can hit your J Ruler. You can use them on J Rulers. This is just great because of the fact that it has evasion, or it's going to give your guys evasion. Whatever you're casting it on is going to get flying. It's going to probably be able to get through, which is going to be very important in this style of deck. You're going to try to stack everything up onto 1 guy and just absolutely crush face with it. So this is a total 4 of in every inheritance deck you want to run. Next we have the Spirit of Light. It's a 2-drop, white, 600/600. When this card enters the field, put a 1/1 counter on another target J Resonator you control. Not a fan. It's not high enough impact. It's not good enough. It's not going to see play. And on to our next inheritance card. This is the Shining Kieran. It is green, white, and colorless. It's a 6/6. When this card enters your field, draw a card. With its inheritance, of course, target J Resonator gets its base power and toughness, which is +6/+6, until end of turn, and you draw a card. This one here should be another card that is a 4 of in every inheritance deck. The fact that it replaces itself in your hand, the fact that it's got decent stats, the fact that it's got inheritance, you know, if you consider the fact when Faria is flipped, if you've got nothing else and you're top decking this, you get to cast this off for the free inheritance spell, draw another card, and get another thing to go out, another inheritance to go off with if you draw into it. So any card that's going to be in this style of deck, you know, the inheritance style of deck is a style of deck that's going to run you out of hand really fast. You're going to not have any cards left. So any card that, as part of that inheritance ability, is going to replace itself in your hand is just going to be great, and you should absolutely play them. Here we have the Tuning of Wind and Darkness. It is black, green, and colorless. Choose one, or if you control a Wind and Darkness Resonator, you may choose both. Recover up to 4 target magic stones, or put target Resonator from your graveyard into your hand. Not a big fan. There really aren't any decks that are great that are going to want to run this card. It's going to net you 1 will or 1 stone, or it's going to get back 1 guy. There's just much better answers or much better things that will fit into this category than this card. It's just never going to be a great one, I don't think. It doesn't even have quick cast. Now we have Wetlands of Magical Origin. This is black and green. Tap, recover target magic stone. It's okay. I think it has the potential to be much more abused in the future when we start getting stones that have really broken effects, like most games do. It's decent for, it's okay for ramp, but I'd much rather just have an elf than this, I guess, you know. But it's not bad, you know, and I know they were kind of thinking more along the lines of the whole turning your creature into 1,000, then getting to attack again with this guy, but it's kind of not needed when your ruler does it for you every time you swing with it. So in the future, could be a very good card. We'll have to wait and see on this one. Now we have Yashimaru. It is black, 3/3. When it enters the field, destroy target Resonator your opponent's control with a 1 or more 1/1 counters on it. This guy in that deck we spoke about with the First Daughters and the counters on your opponent's creatures and abusing them is just a 4 of in there. He's a 1-drop that's going to kill one of their guys that you get to pick, and he leaves a body on the battlefield. He's going to be great, but only in that deck.